For this video, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to write the equation of a line. And there are 4 different ways we can do this. So the first thing you want to do is you want to get out your notes, just like the one that I have pulled up here. Okay, so hopefully you have your graphic organizer at the ready. You also might have it on Kami as well. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write the equation if we're given slope and y-intercept. So given slope and y-intercept, the first thing you need to remember is that we have y equals mx plus b. M is your slope. B is your y-intercept. Okay? So in this case, we have a slope of 1/2, so that means m equals 1/2. The y-intercept is -3, that means b is -3. So all we do is throw those numbers into our equation, and we write y equals 1/2 x minus 3. Simple as that. Okay, moving on to the next example. If you're given a graph. So in this case, we're given a graph, and on our graph, we need to find our slope and we need to find our y-intercept. We kind of do the same thing. So our y-intercept is where our line crosses the y-axis, and in this case, that's at -3, so b equals -3. To find our slope, we're going to pick up 2 points that are on the line. So one point is here, another point is here. You could also use your y-intercept, really doesn't matter. So to get from one point to another, I went up 2 and I went right 4. Remember, slope is change in y over change in x, or rise over run. So our slope is +2 over +4, which is 1/2 when you reduce it. Now that we have a y-intercept and we have a slope, we're just going to throw that into our y equals mx plus b form. So we get y equals 1/2 x minus 3. You'll notice that this is the same equation that we had in the first example, just a different way to get there. Okay, so our third example has to do with given slope and a point. Little bit different this way. Okay, so we're given slope is 1/2, so m is 1/2. We don't have our y-intercept this time, but we do have a point. So the point is 4, -1. That gives us an x and a y. We can use this information to calculate our y-intercept. So we're going to start with y equals mx plus b. And b is the thing that we don't know. We're going to throw the other numbers into our equation. So we're going to substitute y is -1, m is 1/2, x is 4, and we don't know what b is. So we'll just calculate everything out. So -1, half of 4 is 2, subtract 2, so we get b equals 3. And guess what? We get the same equation we did before. B is -3, because -1 plus -2 is -3. So y equals 1/2. That's my x. That's my m, my slope. So y equals 1/2 x minus 3. So there's our third way of calculating our equation. So the fourth way is if we're given 2 points. So in this case, we don't know what the slope is. We have to calculate it first. So remember, the slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It really doesn't matter which point is your first point and which point is your second point, as long as you're consistent. So m equals, I'm going to use those two as my y, so -4 minus -2. And the other two pieces are my x's. So -2 minus 2. So -4 minus -2, or -4 plus 2 gives me -2. -2 minus 2 gives me -4. And if I simplify that, we get +1/2. You don't have to simplify the slope, but it certainly makes it easier as you do other things. Okay, so try to simplify your slope each time. So I'm going to use that, and then I'm just going to use the first point, and I'm going to do what I did in the last example. So we have y equals mx plus b. -4 is my y, 1/2 is my slope, and -2 is my x. So -4, half of -2 is -1. I'm going to add 1 to both sides so that I can solve for b, and that's -3. So y equals 1/2 x minus 3. Okay? And that's how you come up with those equations. A couple of things that you probably want to remember about slope, and I'm going to put them over here on a graph. So slope, okay? Remember, the top number is your up or down. The bottom number is your right or left. Top is always, when you go up, it's positive. When you go right, it's positive. When you go down, there's a negative. When you go left, it's a negative. Remember that if my slope is -1/2, that means only one piece is negative. So -1 over +2, or +1 over -2. And the third thing that you need to remember is that if I have a positive slope, for example, the 1/2, that means that both pieces are either positive or both pieces are negative. Okay, so I hope that helps. On the second page of this is just a quick graphic organizer on different things. So we have something about the slope, so how to calculate slope. We have something about our y-intercept, so where your line crosses the y-axis, how to graph the line, and then special lines. So we're going to talk about vertical and horizontal lines as well. And then finding the equation of the line given the slope and y-intercept.